When Kenneth Williams, the 22-year-old heir to a $20 million trust fund, slaps Ruby Garcia across the face in front of the entire diner, he thinks he has just destroyed the life of a poor waitress who dared to spill coffee on his $8,000 Saint Laurent jacket. The sound echoes through Murphy's diner like a gunshot. The silence that follows is deafening. But when Ruby's torn sleeve shifts upward, revealing the military tattoo on her forearm, Kenneth's smug expression instantly transforms into pure terror. Because Ruby Garcia is not the helpless victim he thought he was tormenting for the past 6 months, she is the daughter of Lieutenant Colonel Miguel Garcia, the decorated war hero who died protecting the very secret that Kenneth's father killed him to hide. And now, the monster that Kenneth's family created is about to wake up. If you're already feeling the tension building in this incredible story, hit that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping tales of justice served cold. Your support through the thanks button helps me continue bringing these powerful stories to light. And honestly, stories like Ruby's deserve to be heard by everyone. Thank you for being here with me as we dive into this unbelievable journey. Ruby Garcia counts her tips for the 3rd time tonight, her calloused fingers sorting through crumpled $1 bills and loose quarters. $37 after 8 hours of serving demanding customers at Murphy's diner. Her worn sneakers, held together with duct tape, ache against the greasy linoleum floor. The same shoes she has worn for 18 months, because buying new ones would mean skipping meals for a week. At 20 years old, Ruby works the night shift from 6 p.m. until 2 a.m., then attends morning classes at Westfield University on a partial academic scholarship that covers only 60% of her tuition. The remaining $40,000 per year comes from student loans, weekend shifts at a grocery store, and the constant anxiety of knowing that one missed payment could end her dreams of becoming a doctor. Meanwhile, just 3 blocks away, Kenneth Williams tosses a $500 tip to the valet at Meridian Country Club without even looking at the young man's face. He has just finished a dinner that cost more than Ruby's monthly rent. Kenneth slides into his Lamborghini Huracan, the engine purring to life with a sound that costs more than most people's annual salaries. The car is one of 4 in his collection, purchased with money he has never had to earn. His Patek Philippe watch, worth $300,000, catches the light as he adjusts his rearview mirror. Kenneth wears it casually, unaware that its value could pay for Ruby's entire college education. Tonight feels perfect for what Kenneth calls slumming it, visiting Murphy's diner with his fraternity brothers to mock the working-class students who serve them. Ruby's thin frame moves efficiently between tables, her long black hair pulled back in a tight ponytail that has not been styled by a professional in years. Every dollar she earns goes toward survival, not appearance. Her work uniform, a simple white blouse and black pants, shows the wear of countless wash cycles in a laundromat. She owns only 2 sets and alternates them throughout the week. When she smiles at customers, her warmth is genuine despite her exhaustion. Ruby has learned to find dignity in honest work, just as her father taught her before he died serving their country. The tattoo on her left forearm remains hidden beneath a long-sleeved shirt that she wears even during summer heat. The design is too precious, too painful, too powerful to expose to the casual cruelty of strangers. The rumble of expensive engines announces their arrival before Kenneth and his crew even enter Murphy's diner. 6 luxury cars worth more than most homes park carelessly across multiple spaces. Kenneth emerges from his Lamborghini wearing a casual outfit that costs more than Ruby's family spends on groceries in 6 months. His Saint Laurent leather jacket, custom Italian shoes, and designer jeans represent a level of wealth that most people cannot even comprehend. Behind him follow 5 other members of Alpha Sigma fraternity, each one a monument to inherited privilege and unearned confidence. They stride into the diner like conquistadors entering new territory to claim. Ruby feels the familiar knot form in her stomach as she watches Kenneth's reflection in the chrome coffee machine. She has learned to recognize the predatory smile that spreads across his perfectly symmetrical face whenever he spots her. For 6 months, Kenneth has made Ruby his primary source of entertainment during these late-night visits. What began as casual rudeness has evolved into systematic psychological torture that follows her even outside the diner walls. The other customers seem to sense the shift in atmosphere. Conversations lower to whispers, and several patrons quickly ask for their checks rather than witness whatever humiliation Kenneth has planned tonight. "Well, well, well," Kenneth announces loudly enough for the entire diner to hear, his voice carrying the cultivated accent of private school education and European vacations. "If it isn't my favorite little poverty princess." His fraternity brothers laugh on cue, their expensive dental work gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. They have learned that supporting Kenneth's cruelty is the price of accessing his family's wealth and connections. Ruby approaches their table with measured steps, her hands steady despite the trembling in her chest. She has survived worse than entitled rich boys, though Kenneth does not know this yet. The contrast between their worlds becomes starkly visible as Kenneth carelessly drops his car keys on the table. The Lamborghini fob costs more than Ruby's monthly salary, yet he treats it like disposable trash. Ruby pulls out her order pad, its pages worn soft from constant use. The pen she holds is a cheap plastic one that she found in the parking lot last week. Kenneth's manicured fingers, adorned with a signet ring bearing his family crest, drum impatiently against the table. Ruby's hands bear small scars from kitchen accidents and the calluses of constant work. "I'll have the most expensive thing on your pathetic menu," Kenneth declares, not bothering to look at Ruby directly. His voice carries the casual dismissal of someone who has never had to consider another person's feelings. "Actually, make that 6 of everything expensive. We're feeling generous tonight." His credit card, a Black American Express with no spending limit, sits prominently displayed on the table. It represents more financial power than Ruby's entire family has ever possessed. Ruby writes down the order methodically, calculating in her head that their bill will exceed $800. She also knows, with sickening certainty, that Kenneth has no intention of leaving an appropriate tip. The escalation of Kenneth's cruelty over the past 6 months has followed a deliberate pattern, each incident more humiliating than the last. What Ruby initially dismissed as typical rich kid rudeness has revealed itself as something far more sinister. It began in January with financial humiliation that Kenneth filmed for his social media accounts. He would order expensive meals for his entire table, then tip exactly 1 penny while recording Ruby's reaction. The videos, posted with captions like, "Watch poor girl's face when she gets what she deserves," garnered millions of views and established Ruby as an unwilling internet celebrity known for her humiliation. By February, Kenneth had escalated to public degradation that drew crowds of onlookers. He would intentionally spill entire meals on the floor, then demand that Ruby clean up the mess while he live-streamed her on her hands and knees. "This is what happens when you don't know your place," Kenneth would announce to his audience of hundreds of thousands of followers. Ruby had no choice but to comply or lose the job she desperately needed. The other customers would watch in uncomfortable silence, their own discomfort secondary to their fascination with the spectacle of human suffering. March brought psychological torture that invaded Ruby's dreams and made her dread coming to work. Kenneth began bringing different dates each week and introducing Ruby as "my pet waitress," who would perform tricks for entertainment. He forced her to recite the entire menu while kneeling beside their table, photographing her exhausted face to create memes that spread across social platforms. Ruby started having panic attacks in the diner's bathroom, but she could not afford to quit. Her mother's medical bills from a recent surgery meant that every dollar Ruby earned was already allocated to survival. The psychological warfare intensified in April when Kenneth created dedicated social media accounts focused entirely on Ruby's humiliation. The Instagram account Poor Waitress Ruby posted her work schedule so that other cruel customers could time their visits to maximize her suffering. Kenneth used artificial intelligence to create fake videos of Ruby in compromising positions, damaging her reputation at university and threatening her academic standing. The pressure became so intense that Ruby's grades began to suffer. Her scholarship hung by a thread as Kenneth's campaign of destruction consumed her life. Economic sabotage dominated May as Kenneth used his family's influence to systematically destroy Ruby's financial stability. He bribed the diner's manager to reduce her hours, reported false health violations to get her temporarily suspended, and threatened other customers to discourage them from tipping her. Ruby fell behind on rent and was forced to move from her small apartment to an even cheaper trailer in a dangerous part of town. She began riding a 15-year-old bicycle to work because she could no longer afford bus fare. Kenneth documented every aspect of her declining circumstances, turning her poverty into content for his entertainment empire. June marked the beginning of Kenneth's final phase, though Ruby did not understand the full scope of his plan. He started bringing professional camera equipment disguised as casual recording devices, setting up what he called the ultimate content creation opportunity. His fraternity brothers began taking bets on how far Kenneth could push Ruby before she finally broke completely. The amounts they wagered casually exceeded Ruby's annual income. Kenneth's confidence had grown absolute. He believed himself untouchable, protected by family wealth and social connections that extended into every level of local power. Tonight feels different from the moment Kenneth enters the diner. His smile carries a predatory satisfaction that makes Ruby's instincts scream danger. The professional camera crew he has brought appears to be just more fraternity brothers, but their equipment is too sophisticated, and their positioning too strategic for a casual night out. Kenneth has planned something special that will cement his reputation as the cruelest content creator on social media. Ruby serves their elaborate meal with mechanical precision, her movements careful and controlled. She senses that any mistake tonight will be magnified and weaponized against her. The trigger comes when Ruby accidentally brushes against Kenneth's jacket while refilling his coffee. A few drops splash onto the $8,000 Saint Laurent leather, creating tiny dark spots that could be easily cleaned. Kenneth's reaction is instantaneous and volcanic, his voice rising to a roar that silences every conversation in the diner. "You clumsy, worthless piece of trash! Do you have any idea what you just did?" The cameras begin recording immediately, capturing every angle of the confrontation that Kenneth has orchestrated for maximum viral impact. "I'm so sorry, sir," Ruby responds quietly, her voice steady despite the fear growing in her chest. "I can clean that off right away. It's just a few drops of—" Her words are cut short by the sharp crack of Kenneth's palm connecting with her cheek, the slap delivered with enough force to snap her head to the side. The sound echoes through the diner like a gunshot. The silence that follows is absolute, broken only by the quiet hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Ruby's cheek burns with pain. But more shocking is the realization that Kenneth has crossed a line from psychological to physical assault. This is no longer just harassment. It is violence. The impact of the slap causes Ruby's worn blouse to tear at the shoulder seam, the fabric giving way after months of wear and inadequate care. As her sleeve falls away, The tattoo on her left forearm becomes visible for the first time. Kenneth's triumphant expression freezes mid-smile as his eyes focus on the design permanently etched into Ruby's skin. The eagle, globe, and anchor of the United States Marine Corps is unmistakable, surrounded by text that makes Kenneth's blood run cold. In honor of Lieutenant Colonel Miguel Garcia, Medal of Honor, KIA Afghanistan, Semper Fidelis, reads the inscription, each word a hammer blow to Kenneth's suddenly racing heart. The recognition hits Kenneth like a physical blow. His father had drilled the name Miguel Garcia into his memory years ago, always prefaced with warnings about the soldier who knew too much. Lieutenant Colonel Miguel Garcia was the Marine who had rescued Kenneth's father from kidnappers during an overseas business trip 10 years ago. He was also the witness who had seen too much of the Williams family's illegal arms dealing operations. The hit that had killed Colonel Garcia in Afghanistan was no coincidence. It was an assassination disguised as enemy action, ordered by Kenneth's father to eliminate a threat to their empire. Ruby stares at Kenneth's suddenly pale face, confusion replacing the pain of the slap. She has never seen anyone react to her father's memorial tattoo with such obvious terror. "You recognize him?" Ruby says quietly, her voice carrying a new quality that Kenneth has never heard before. Gone is the submissive whisper of a desperate waitress, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. Kenneth opens his mouth to speak, but no words come. His carefully constructed world of privilege and power is crumbling as he realizes that his months of torturing Ruby Garcia have been acts of war against the daughter of a war hero. The other customers begin to murmur as they notice Kenneth's dramatic change in demeanor. The confident bully has transformed into a trembling young man whose hands shake as he reaches for his wallet. Ruby's tattoo represents more than just a memorial to her father. It is a declaration of war against everyone who contributed to his death. Kenneth's father had shared enough details of the Garcia problem for Kenneth to understand that the quiet waitress he has been tormenting is the daughter of the man his family murdered. Every cruel video, every humiliation, every moment of suffering he has inflicted has been an attack on a Gold Star family. Ruby reports the assault to the police within an hour of leaving Murphy's diner, her torn shirt and bruised cheek serving as evidence of Kenneth's escalating violence. The responding officers listen to her statement with polite disinterest before informing her that boys will be boys and that pressing charges against a Williams family member would be complicated. The desk sergeant suggests that Ruby might have misunderstood Kenneth's intentions and that the slap was probably just playful roughhousing that got out of hand. Ruby leaves the police station with the clear understanding that the system designed to protect citizens does not extend its services to poor women who accuse rich men of crimes. Westfield University's response proves even more disappointing when Ruby attempts to file a formal complaint through the Student Conduct Office. The administrator who meets with her spends more time discussing the Williams family's recent donation of a new business school building than addressing Ruby's allegations of harassment. "Mr. Williams is from a very prominent family," the woman explains with practiced diplomacy, "and we must be absolutely certain that any accusations against him are completely substantiated." Ruby learns that Kenneth's fraternity has already provided statements claiming that the incident was a misunderstanding and that Ruby had been aggressively pursuing Kenneth for months. The manager at Murphy's Diner delivers the final blow when Ruby arrives for her next scheduled shift. Her employment has been terminated effective immediately due to creating a hostile work environment and making unfounded accusations against valued customers. The manager hands Ruby her final paycheck, which has been reduced by the cost of Kenneth's damaged jacket and the disruption caused by the incident. Ruby leaves with $17.34 for her final 8 hours of work. She walks to the parking lot in a daze, her bicycle chain having been cut by unknown vandals, forcing her to walk the 7 miles home to her trailer. Ruby sits on the steps of her trailer that night, staring at her father's memorial tattoo in the moonlight. The eagle, globe, and anchor seem to pulse with meaning that she has never fully understood until now. Lieutenant Colonel Miguel Garcia had raised his daughter on stories of honor, duty, and protecting those who cannot protect themselves. He had also trained her in ways that seemed like games at the time, but now revealed themselves as preparation for war. Ruby closes her eyes and remembers her father's voice. "Baby girl, sometimes the world is cruel to good people, but we never bow to bullies, and we always protect the innocent." The next morning brings clarity that cuts through Ruby's despair like a blade through silk. She contacts Sergeant Major James Davis, her father's former commanding officer, who had promised to always be available if she ever needed help. The conversation that follows changes everything Ruby thought she knew about her father's death. Sergeant Major Davis explains that Lieutenant Colonel Garcia had been investigating the Williams family's illegal arms sales to enemy combatants when he died in what was officially reported as an enemy ambush. The truth, known only to a select few in military intelligence, was that Miguel Garcia had been murdered by people he had once risked his life to save. "Your father died protecting national security," Sergeant Major Davis tells Ruby over a secure phone connection. "The Williams family has been selling weapons to terrorist organizations for over a decade, and your father was gathering evidence to stop them." Ruby learns that Kenneth's father had ordered the hit on her father after Colonel Garcia discovered bank records proving the illegal arms sales. The rescue mission that brought them together had been orchestrated to get close enough to Garcia to eliminate him when he became a threat. Kenneth Williams has spent 6 months torturing the daughter of the man his family murdered, turning his crimes into entertainment for millions of viewers. Ruby's transformation begins that moment, her victim mindset shattering like glass under pressure. She is no longer a poor waitress trying to survive college while grieving her father's loss. Ruby Garcia is the daughter of a war hero who died fighting corruption, and she carries his DNA, his training, and his unfinished mission in her veins. Kenneth Williams has awakened something dangerous that has been sleeping in her genetics for 20 years. The quiet, submissive girl who cleaned up spilled food while being filmed has died. The woman who rises from her ashes carries the tactical knowledge of a Marine colonel and the righteous fury of a daughter seeking justice. Ruby's strategic planning begins with a phone call to her father's old unit, Alpha Company of the 2nd Marine Division. Within hours, she has access to resources that Kenneth Williams cannot imagine or buy. Sergeant Major Davis connects her with a network of veterans who have been investigating the Williams family for years. They provide Ruby with detailed psychological profiles, financial records, and evidence that transforms her from victim to prosecutor. The military community rallies around Colonel Garcia's daughter with efficiency that would make Kenneth's lawyers weep. They have been waiting for someone with standing to bring the Williams empire down. The intelligence-gathering phase reveals the full scope of Kenneth's systematic harassment campaign. Ruby's new allies include cybersecurity experts who trace every video, every post, and every dollar that Kenneth earned from her humiliation. They document a pattern of abuse that extends far beyond Ruby to include dozens of other victims from working-class backgrounds. Kenneth has built his entire social media empire on the suffering of people too poor to fight back. The evidence forms a web of cruelty that reaches into multiple states and involves millions of dollars in profits from pain. Ruby learns that Kenneth's behavior follows textbook patterns of a sociopathic predator who targets vulnerable victims. His choice of Ruby was not random, but calculated based on her financial desperation and lack of social connections. The psychological profile developed by military intelligence specialists reveals Kenneth as a dangerous individual whose escalating violence was always leading toward serious physical assault, or worse. Ruby's slapping was just the beginning of what Kenneth had planned for his ultimate viral video. The knowledge transforms Ruby's anger into something colder and more purposeful. She is no longer fighting for herself alone, but for every victim of entitled cruelty. The network-building phase connects Ruby with other survivors of Kenneth's harassment who have been suffering in silence. Together, they form a coalition that represents millions of dollars in damages and multiple felony charges. The veteran lawyers who volunteer their services recognize the case as an opportunity to strike a blow against a system that protects wealthy criminals at the expense of military families. They work without fees, motivated by justice rather than profit. Ruby's legal team includes former military prosecutors who have experience dismantling criminal organizations and seizing assets through federal RICO statutes. Ruby's plan takes shape over several sleepless nights spent reviewing intelligence reports and legal strategies. Phase 1 involves gathering irrefutable evidence of Kenneth's harassment campaign and his family's criminal enterprises. Phase 2 exposes the connections between Kenneth's individual cruelty and his family's systematic corruption of military procurement processes. The personal becomes political as Ruby's story reveals a network of crimes against national security. Phase 3 culminates in a public confrontation where Kenneth faces justice surrounded by his victims and witnessed by the world. Ruby plans to give Kenneth the same choice he gave his victims: public humiliation or total destruction. Looking at Ruby sitting alone in her trailer, planning her revenge against the boy who destroyed her life, I have to ask, what would you have done in her situation? Would you have fought back, or would you have tried to disappear and start over somewhere else? Comment below and let me know, because Ruby's next moves are going to shock everyone who thought they knew how this story would end. Ruby's first victory comes within 48 hours of implementing her strategic plan. She exposes Kenneth's fake charity organization that claims to support military families while actually funneling tax-deductible donations into Williams' family accounts. The evidence, delivered simultaneously to the Internal Revenue Service and major news outlets, reveals a systematic fraud worth over $3 million that specifically targets the demographic Kenneth has been publicly humiliating. Kenneth's Instagram followers, previously entertained by his cruelty, turn against him as they realize they have been supporting a criminal who profits from military family suffering. His follower count drops from 4 million to under 50,000 in a single day. The university investigation begins when Ruby's veteran legal team presents documented evidence of the Williams family's illegal influence over academic policies. The recent $20 million donation for the new business school building came with explicit agreements to protect Kenneth from any disciplinary actions. Westfield University faces federal scrutiny, as investigators discover that Williams' family money has been used to silence multiple harassment complaints and academic misconduct reports. Kenneth's perfect grade point average and fraternity leadership position were purchased rather than earned. The scandal forces the university president to resign and triggers a Department of Education investigation into corruption in higher education funding. Kenneth's fraternity presidency crumbles when his own brothers turn against him after learning the truth about his family's criminal enterprises. Alpha Sigma fraternity faces dissolution as members realize their association with Kenneth has made them accessories to federal crimes. The young men who once laughed at Ruby's humiliation now compete to provide evidence against Kenneth in exchange for immunity deals. Their testimony reveals years of systematic harassment, targeting students from military families. Kenneth finds himself isolated and paranoid, unable to trust anyone, as his carefully constructed social network abandons him to save themselves. The Williams family legal team launches a desperate counterattack designed to destroy Ruby's credibility before she can expose more of their criminal activities. High-powered attorneys file defamation lawsuits seeking hundreds of millions in damages while hiring private investigators to find dirt on Ruby's personal life. Their media campaign portrays Ruby as a delusional young woman seeking attention and money from a successful family. They claim her father's military service has been exaggerated and suggest that Ruby is mentally unstable. The attacks intensify when Williams' family allies in local government attempt to have Ruby arrested on fabricated charges of extortion and harassment. Ruby's darkest moment comes when the corrupted system seems poised to destroy her, just as it destroyed her father. Evidence mysteriously disappears from police files, witnesses receive threatening phone calls, and Ruby's academic scholarship is suspended pending investigation into irregularities in her application. Kenneth appears on national television playing the victim, claiming that a deranged stalker has been harassing his family for months. His performance is so convincing that public opinion begins to shift in his favor. Ruby sits in her trailer watching Kenneth lie to millions of viewers, feeling the same despair that must have consumed her father before his death. The rally begins when Sergeant Major Davis appears on the same television program, carrying Lieutenant Colonel Miguel Garcia's Medal of Honor and a folder containing classified documents. His presence instantly transforms the narrative from personal dispute to national security crisis. Ruby Garcia is the daughter of one of the finest Marines I ever served with, Davis announces to the stunned television host, and Kenneth Williams is the son of the arms dealer who had her father murdered. The revelation explodes across social media as military families nationwide recognize the ultimate betrayal of a Gold Star family by the criminals who created that Gold Star. Major news networks pick up the story as justice for Garcia trends globally, reaching 47 million social media interactions within 12 hours. Ruby's story becomes a symbol of everything wrong with a system that protects wealthy criminals while destroying working-class heroes. Veterans organizations mobilize their considerable political influence to demand congressional hearings into the Williams family's business practices. Retired generals and Medal of Honor recipients appear on television supporting Ruby and condemning Kenneth's family. The momentum becomes unstoppable as Ruby's personal fight transforms into a national movement for military family protection. Kenneth's desperation reaches dangerous levels as his family's empire faces complete destruction. He hires private security contractors to intimidate Ruby and her supporters while planning increasingly reckless acts of retaliation. The thugs he employs underestimate the military community's protective instincts. Veteran motorcycle clubs and security companies form a protective detail around Ruby that operates with military precision. Kenneth's hired intimidators find themselves outmatched by former Special Forces operators who volunteer their services to protect Colonel Garcia's daughter. Several of Kenneth's contractors end up hospitalized after attempting to threaten military families. The stakes escalate beyond personal revenge when federal investigators discover that Williams family corruption extends into active military contracts. Their illegal arms sales have resulted in American soldiers dying from defective equipment sold at premium prices. Ruby's fight for personal justice transforms into a national security investigation that threatens to expose decades of systematic corruption. Kenneth realizes that his family faces not just financial ruin, but potential treason charges that carry life sentences. His final desperate gambit involves returning to Murphy's Diner for what he calls a victory lap. unaware that Ruby has spent weeks preparing for exactly this confrontation. Kenneth arrives at Murphy's Diner on a Saturday night with a convoy of expensive cars and a professional camera crew. He believes that one final humiliation of Ruby will restore his social media dominance and distract from his family's legal troubles. The diner appears normal from outside, but Ruby has transformed it into a carefully orchestrated trap. Every customer is either a veteran, a journalist, or a legal witness positioned to document Kenneth's downfall. Ruby stands behind the counter in her old uniform, appearing as vulnerable and alone as she was 6 months ago. Kenneth sees only his victim, not the warrior she has become. "Did you miss me, poverty princess?" Kenneth announces loudly as he enters, his voice carrying forced confidence that barely conceals his desperation. "I thought you might want to apologize for all the lies you've been spreading about my family." The cameras begin rolling as Kenneth approaches Ruby with theatrical swagger, playing to an audience he believes still supports him. He cannot see the federal agents positioned throughout the diner or recognize the journalists documenting his every word. Ruby looks up from cleaning glasses with the same quiet demeanor that Kenneth has always mistaken for weakness. She has learned that the most dangerous opponents often appear the most harmless. "I don't owe you any apologies, Kenneth," Ruby responds calmly, her voice carrying a new authority that stops Kenneth mid-stride. "But you owe apologies to my father, to every military family your people have betrayed, and to every person you've hurt for entertainment." She reaches beneath the counter and produces a thick folder containing evidence that Kenneth's lawyers have been desperately trying to suppress. Bank records, communication transcripts, and video footage that prove the Williams family's crimes beyond any doubt. Kenneth's confident smile falters as he realizes that Ruby has not spent 6 months cowering in fear. She has spent 6 months building an unbreakable case against his entire family. The confrontation reaches its climax when Ruby plays audio recordings of Kenneth's father ordering her father's assassination. The conversations, captured by military intelligence during the original investigation, provide irrefutable proof of murder and treason. Kenneth's face drains of color as he hears his father's voice discussing the Garcia problem and the need to eliminate the threat permanently. The recordings play over the diner's sound system for everyone to hear. The customers, revealed now as FBI agents and military investigators, begin arresting Kenneth's crew, while federal prosecutors serve warrants for the entire Williams family fortune. Kenneth's final desperate act involves lunging at Ruby in an attempt to destroy the evidence. His attack triggers responses from multiple directions as military veterans move to protect Colonel Garcia's daughter. Kenneth finds himself face down on the diner floor, restrained by former Marines while Ruby stands calmly above him. The power dynamic has completely reversed from their first encounter. "Your father killed my father," Ruby says quietly, her words carrying the weight of absolute truth. "And you spent 6 months torturing his daughter for entertainment. Justice has been a long time coming, but it's here now." The immediate aftermath unfolds with military precision as federal agents arrest Kenneth on charges ranging from harassment and assault to aiding and abetting treason. His social media empire crumbles as platforms remove his content and freeze his monetization. The Williams family's business empire faces complete seizure under federal asset forfeiture laws. Decades of illegal profits will be redistributed to military families and anti-corruption organizations. Kenneth's final moments of freedom are spent begging Ruby for forgiveness while FBI agents read him his rights. His apologies fall on ears that have heard too many lies to believe in redemption. Ruby watches Kenneth being led away in handcuffs, feeling not triumph, but the quiet satisfaction of duty fulfilled. She has honored her father's memory by finishing the mission that cost him his life. The justice system that had initially protected Kenneth now works efficiently to dismantle his family's criminal empire. Federal prosecutors announced that the Williams case will serve as a blueprint for investigating corruption in military contracting. Ruby's personal fight for dignity has evolved into a national movement that will protect countless future victims from predatory abuse. The long-term consequences extend far beyond Kenneth's imprisonment and his family's financial destruction. Ruby's case establishes legal precedents that strengthen protections for military families and harassment victims. New federal legislation, nicknamed Ruby's Law, creates enhanced penalties for crimes targeting Gold Star families and establishes victim support funds financed by seized criminal assets. Universities nationwide implement mandatory anti-harassment training and independent reporting systems to prevent the institutional protection of wealthy predators. Westfield University becomes a model for student safety reforms. Ruby completes her medical degree with full scholarship support from military family organizations. She specializes in trauma psychology and opens a practice dedicated to helping harassment victims rebuild their lives. Her foundation, the Lieutenant Colonel Miguel Garcia Center for Military Family Justice, becomes a national resource for families facing corruption and abuse. The center is funded entirely by seized Williams family assets. Ruby's transformation from victim to advocate inspires countless others to speak out against their own abusers. She receives thousands of letters from people who found courage through her example. Kenneth serves a federal sentence of 25 years for his role in his family's criminal enterprises. His social media accounts become case studies in cyberbullying and predatory behavior. His father faces life imprisonment for treason and murder. The Williams family name becomes synonymous with corruption and betrayal in business schools and military academies. The fortune built on the suffering of military families is redistributed to create scholarships, medical funds, and support services for Gold Star families nationwide. Ruby stands at her father's grave on the anniversary of his death, no longer the broken girl who once counted tips with trembling hands. She has become the woman Lieutenant Colonel Miguel Garcia raised her to be. The memorial tattoo on her arm no longer hides beneath long sleeves. It serves as visible proof that honor and duty can triumph over corruption and cruelty. Other visitors to the cemetery approach Ruby throughout the day, thanking her for fighting battles they could not fight themselves. She has become a symbol of hope for everyone who has ever felt powerless against systemic injustice. The REVEAL formula completes Ruby's journey as she realizes that her father's death was not meaningless. His sacrifice planted seeds that grew into a movement protecting military families nationwide. The escalation of her personal fight created ripple effects that exposed corruption at every level of society. Her emotional shift from victim to warrior inspired legal and cultural changes that will protect future generations. The ambiguous elements of her story center on the broader implications of her victory. How many other military families have suffered similar betrayals? And what other corrupted systems need Ruby's attention? Ruby's final words, spoken to a packed auditorium at West Point Military Academy, carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom. My father taught me that freedom is not free, and justice is not automatic. Sometimes ordinary people must do extraordinary things to protect what matters most. The uniform comes off, but the duty never ends. As Ruby exits the auditorium, a young cadet approaches her with urgent eyes and a trembling voice. "Ma'am, I know about another military family being targeted by defense contractors, and they're too scared to come forward. The corruption goes deeper than anyone realizes, and there are more families like yours who need help." Ruby stops walking, her expression shifting to the focused intensity that Kenneth Williams once mistook for weakness. The war for military family justice is far from over, and Ruby Garcia has found her life's mission. The camera fades as Ruby and the young cadet walk toward a future filled with new battles, unresolved mysteries, and the promise that justice, once awakened, never sleeps again.